Welcome to the Sports Memory. We've got another great Saturday here. It's rivalry week, finally, the last week of the regular season. It's been a week full of football and a week full of food and family and all that stuff. How was your Thanksgiving, Kurt?
Stuffed to the gills. Let's just say that. I'm just stuffed like a turkey.
Yeah.
So ready to get after it for college football today. Let's roll.
Yeah, and so the college football. I mean, we had a bunch of games already this week. Some good games last week. Brandon talked to you about those. The biggest one from that was the NC State UNC game, which was absolutely wild. The way that game went and finished and stuff. But we've got a bunch more rivalry games here to do today. But we're just going to touch on a little bit of what happened last week. So the biggest the upsets from last week, none of them were in the top 25, although Oregon did lose to Utah. They were actually the underdog in that game. So it doesn't quite count as an upset in terms of Vegas. But Florida State does beat Boston College and the referees who, tried to pull it away from Florida State. And then Missouri beat Florida, and Eli Drinkwitz proceeded to troll Dan Mullen with the nerdy Star Wars pulling out the Force and the lightsaber and stuff, which is a callback to what Dan Mullen did last year when he showed up as Darth Vader to the post game. And then subsequently, Dan Mullen got fired on Sunday. So
Who would have guessed that was going to happen? After
yeah.
after Dan Mullen getting the boot. But trust me, he's sitting pretty. He's got that payout and about to double dip with another school. So another college coach getting away with murder.
I mean, yeah. So he does have a buyout, but the buyout doesn't decrease any next year. So there's no reason not to fire him now. At the end of the day, they're not recruiting at the level that they need to if they want to be able to win the games that they want to win, which Florida has national championship title hopes every year. And if you recruit like he's been recruiting, you're not going to be able to get to that level.
Yeah, so how the hell do you get an extension like that then? That's the craziest part to me. This dude gets a freaking extension. Who the hell thought that he was the answer?
Well, I mean, the same guy who hired him was also his AD at Mississippi State. So, they had been working together for whatever, 9 years or something like that at that point. And, he comes off a really good season last year where, they go to the SEC championship game and whatever. But Dan Mullen is always looking for the next job. So whoever is the next buyer, beware. Um, so let's talk about some of the big game results. Alabama holds off Arkansas. Um, no real surprise there, but Arkansas does keep it close, as I told you they would. Utah absolutely dominates Oregon, so that caught me by a little bit of surprise. I thought Oregon was going to be able to hang in there a little bit tougher, but apparently not. Utah just really had their number. Utah also took care of business last night, although they didn't cover the spread against Colorado. Ohio State absolutely murders Michigan State. I thought Michigan State was going to be able to keep that a little bit closer than they did, but apparently when your DBs can't cover and you have the best wide receiving core in the country, you're going to have games like that. So, Ohio State looks really good right now, but let's see if they play up against all the other teams that they may have to face here. Cincinnati takes care of SMU. They absolutely torch them. SMU had been playing teams much closer. Cincinnati had been playing teams much closer, but they go ahead and take care of business both against SMU last week and then yesterday. And then Clemson absolutely blasts Wake Forest. Wake has a really good offense. Clemson was the first team to hold them under 35 all season because Clemson has one of the best defenses in the country, probably right next to Georgia and Wisconsin. So, yeah.
Well, I need to get on the payroll or with somebody, whoever's in Vegas. I'll tell you what, between a couple of those games that you were just talking about there, the upset with Utah versus Oregon, somehow they know what's going on there, and Clemson with Wake as well, which I think that was a toss-up. But they had Wake Forest, I believe, as the favorite, if not the favorite, very close. I'm sorry, Clemson
No,
as the favorite.
yes, Clemson was in fact the favorite.
Yeah, and the favorite going into that week. And it's like, man, what the hell are these guys seeing that I'm not going into the week? It's pretty amazing to see those games come to those results for sure, because I thought Oregon would keep it way closer. Clemson, with their recruitment and the guys that they have on the team, the talent's there, the coaching's there. It's just a weird season for them trying to bounce back. So to see that's definitely impressive.
Yeah. So the college football rankings come out, and obviously there's going to be a little bit more movement this week. Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Cincinnati cracking the top four, first Power 5 team or non-Power 5 team to do that. Other than Notre Dame, as the independent, whatever. So G5, Michigan, Notre Dame, and Oklahoma State. Those are probably the only teams that still have a shot at the at the college football playoff at this point, as they all are. The one loss is ranked in the top 7 or so. But we will get to see Georgia versus Alabama. We will look to see Ohio State versus Michigan. That's happening today. And Cincinnati will still have to play Houston in the conference, their conference title game there for the AAC. Then we get, Notre Dame just kind of waiting there to see if there's a bunch of chaos. Michigan obviously could get in if they were to pull the upset on Ohio State, and Oklahoma State will get to play Bedlam this week. Sitting there, maybe they can vault in. We'll see what happens based on some of the other stuff. Any reactions to that?
Well, yeah, I mean, Cincy just needs to keep Notre Dame needs to keep winning for Cincinnati to stay up into that position. I mean, that's their biggest victory of the season. Notre Dame goes down to a bad team or another loss that could impact Cincinnati for sure and have implications there, especially if you get a Bama-Georgia game where Bama takes down Georgia. It could really throw a wrench in the entire system. Michigan, I don't think they have a shot against OSU. Honestly, I think Jim Harbaugh
we'll talk about that later.
It's just something else. But yeah, between there could be some mix-ups here. But my reaction seeing Cincy in the top 4, I'm elated. Couldn't be happier, honestly. And it's about time they started recognizing a real football team.
Yeah, I mean, Cincinnati, they need to take care of business next week against Houston, but it might take some weird stuff in order for them to get knocked out here, I would think. Based on, the 3 teams behind them, the only team that could jump up over them, I would think, would be Oklahoma State, unless the committees just absolutely decides they're going to screw them somehow. So yeah, we'll see. But so there's some news on the coaching carousel. Obviously, we talked about Mullen getting fired. James Franklin, Hugh Freeze, Mel Tucker, Dave Clawson were all signed to extensions this week. So they're paying out some money here. Most of these extensions, some of them are as much as the length says they're 8, 10 years, etc. There's no chance that those are going to last that long before the coach needs another extension or they get hired away somewhere else. But Mel Tucker, the 1095, makes him the highest paid African-American coach in all of sports.
Nice.
James Franklin right there with, pretty long contract extension there for Penn State. Hugh Freeze is kind of interesting because he's going to be paid $4 million a year to coach Liberty. Like, tell me that they shouldn't be paying players. You know what I mean? Like, they're paying a coach at a school like Liberty $4 million a year to coach football. So,
well,
yeah.
You heard what I said about the coaches. In college, they get away with murder out here, jumping from one team to the next team, getting contract after contract, double dipping buyouts. But a kid can get held in the transfer portal and can't go to a certain school or something along those lines. It's just horse shit. And I'm tired of seeing it, to be quite honest with you. And I think a lot of these extensions with these coaches and a lot of these contracts are because of how many big job openings there are out there. I mean, Franklin's one of those coaches that's being targeted, and they were like, I better take advantage of this while I can. Franklin, he could get a big payday or a big extension, and some of these coaches are taking advantage of that, I think, with their current schools to get these extensions in place.
Yeah, I mean, he got an extension at least. He definitely got one 2 years ago. He may have gotten one last year. Obviously, gets another one this year. So he's a guy who, is going to continue. He wants his name to come up in these rumors. His agent, Jimmy Sexton, who does a lot of the coaches, is going to continue to do that. That's what he does. He gets his coaches paid. That's why he is the coach, the agent for, a majority of the coaches, including your boy Jimbo Fisher, who always comes back to the well and asks for more money. But yeah, I mean, the other interesting note here, Sonny Dykes is going to take over the head coaching job at TCU from SMU. So yeah, he's a guy who knows, that Texas Dallas area, offensive guy. TCU kind of goes in there and swoops him from SMU. So that's kind of interesting to see there. But we have had more coaching openings already this year than ever in the history of college football. So, and we're not even at Black Monday or Black Sunday, which is normally tomorrow. But let's go ahead and jump into this week's games. So as we started off at the top, it is rivalry week. So you've got the first one here we're going to touch on is Georgia giving 35 points to Georgia Tech over under 54.5. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Georgia. What do you got, Kurt?
I mean, you got to stay on Georgia, that's for sure. With the 35, I would even take the 35 points at Georgia Tech. They've been terrible this year. Interstate rivalry, you always want to take your team down. I'd see Georgia probably ended up covering this 35, similar to like Alabama did to that 50 plus that they covered a few weeks back.
Yeah, so Georgia Tech has had some moments where they have played pretty well, but the thing is Georgia's defense is so good that I just think that it would be really hard. It'll be really hard for Georgia Tech to move the ball. The one chance that they really have in this game to cover that 35 points, nobody expects them to win. But to cover that 35 points would be if Georgia kind of packs it in, knowing that they do have to play the SEC championship game next week. But we are all on Georgia there. Next up, we have Ohio State at Michigan, the quote unquote big game. Um, Ohio State is an 8-point favorite at Michigan. The over under for this game is 64.5. So that's an interesting little nugget there. I don't know where I would lean in regards to that over under because I could totally see this turning into. If it goes Ohio State's way, they may very well cover more than that 64.5. But Michigan's going to try to muck this up a little bit. So the under is probably the smartest play on that, but I might stay away from it.
Yeah, I like OSU. If I do take OSU, it's going to be with the points to cover the -8. I just don't see it for Jim Harbaugh. He hasn't been able to beat Ohio State yet. And with the firepower that Ohio State has at offense right now, the way the quarterback is clicking with those wide receivers, I just don't think Michigan's got the juice to keep up with them and put up the points that they do. But like you said, they'll muck it up a little bit, maybe be able to keep it under that 64.5. But I'll take OSU with the points -8.
Here's the thing: Ohio State does not lose big games, right? If they lose a game, it's to, an opponent that they kind of slept on and didn't whatever have them necessarily, but they very rarely will lose like a big game that they're really up for. Obviously, they did lose to Oregon earlier this year, which, was a big game going into it. But since that game, they've made changes to who calls the defensive plays for them. Their defense looks better. Their offense is absolutely loaded at receiving core. You have three guys who are probably first round draft picks in that receiving core. None of them are on the Bolitnikoff finalists, which is probably just a factor of all three of them kind of eat into each other's potential because
Mhm.
people. But Brandon wants to also note that who has Michigan beaten? Their only loss is to a Michigan State team, who's the best team that they've played to this point. So yeah, that's a fair point on that, and I'm also rolling with Ohio State. I will give you the 8.5, 8 points there, 8.5, whatever it may be. Um,
OH.
yeah. Next we have Texas Tech at Baylor. So this is a 15-point line, and this is one that I am a little bit kind of sketch about. I think that 15 is a big number here. 52 points is the over under. Baylor has had moments where they have not played great. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Baylor, and Brandon wants to know how this line is not bigger. What are your thoughts?
Honestly, I think Baylor's been hit or miss throughout the season. Bohannon, which I love the quarterback, I think he can be great, but it all depends and ebbs and flows with his game and what's going to happen with Baylor. 15 points, I don't know if they cover the 15 on a rivalry week with Texas Tech. I think Texas Tech could actually cover the spread in this game against Baylor.
Yeah, so Texas Tech's offense is really good. Baylor has a really good defense, but I could totally see Baylor, getting out to a lead and then kind of taking their foot off the gas enough to allow Texas Tech to garbage time backdoor their way into a cover here. So I think this line's a little bit too big for my liking, although Brandon would say, as he mentioned, how is this line not bigger? Maybe that's because Vegas knows something that you don't, Brandon. That's why I'm on Tech.
That's what we mentioned earlier, right? Somebody's going to know something inside that building, so I'm taking the hint.
Next up, we have the actual big game here, the important one, Florida State, Florida, to see who goes bowling. So Florida State is getting 2.5 points, going down to Florida for a noon kickoff. The over under for this game is 59 points. Both Brandon and Trevor are on UF. Kurt, what do you got?
How is Florida football so bad right now? Like, what is going on? The best state in the entire nation when it comes to football recruitment, and we've got two of the biggest schools in college football history and just struggling on the struggle bus. Again, I think this is kind of sad to see these two schools at this state. But going down to the Swamp, I've got to take UF over FSU. Even though I've seen some flashes in the pan at FSU, especially on their defense, defensive end, the JUCO number 11 that came through. That guy is an absolute
Jermaine
monster.
Johnson.
Yeah, he's an absolute monster. I love watching him play when I see FSU on national TV. But heading down to the Swamp, I think that's a tough game to pick up. And I think the Gators actually take the win there, plus 2.5 or minus 2.5.
Yeah, so I'm on Florida State. At this point, I'd probably
Who
take a
could have
money line.
guessed?
Here's the deal. Who's calling plays for Florida on offense? Because Dan Mullen was the play caller. And they've got 1 week to prepare for that, right? Who's calling plays for Florida on defense? Because they've already fired Todd Grantham. Then you've got Emory Jones potentially hurt for this game. They may have to rely on Anthony Richardson, who has 5 touchdown passes and 5 interceptions this year. That's not exactly good efficiency. If I'm Florida State, I try to force them to throw the ball. Florida State does give up some explosive passing plays, but force them to throw the ball. Don't let them run it. And Florida has had issues stopping the run. We saw what LSU did to them, right? They absolutely housed them for like 250 yards rushing. Florida State runs the ball well. So I trust Florida State's defensive line here, and that's why I'm taking them to win this game. Also, Florida State has more to play for, in my opinion, because their coaching staff is going to still be there come Sunday, whereas Florida's is out the door. So unless these players really, really care about these coaches, which most likely they don't, that's why they're fired, because they've already given up in many games this year. I could totally see Florida State get out into a big lead in this game, and Florida just packs it in, and it turns into a blowout for Florida State. So it's probably going to be closer than that, but Florida State is definitely my pick here. I will take the 2.5 points because you're giving them to me.
A little biases there, but I'll let you have it for sure. And Florida State does run the ball well when they run the ball, when they hand it off. That's a big question.
I expect Jordan Travis to have a big game if Florida decides to. So Florida, like they're bad when it comes to zone defense. They give up a lot in the passing game in that respect. And you don't want to play zone against Florida State because Jordan Travis will just scorch you with his legs. So if they do try to play man, expect Jordan Travis to run. And if they do try to play zone, then expect Florida State to be able to scheme up enough stuff to get some explosives in there and take the wind out of Florida's sails. Next up, we have Wake Forest giving 5 points at Boston College on the road there. We saw Boston College and Florida State last week. Boston College hosted that game and wound up losing. Wake Forest is a better team than Florida State. I expect Wake Forest to be able to cover the 5 points. Where are you at?
The same. I mean, we talked about Boston College when I was on the pod with you the other week. I mean, that program's probably going D2 here shortly enough. I'll take Wake Forest -5. Keep it short and sweet.
I actually like Boston College's coach, and I do think their team's pretty good. Their quarterback was hurt for most of the year, so that's part of an issue. But Wake Forest is a much better team here. They're going to be able to do what they want offensively. I don't think Boston College is really going to be able to stop them. And Wake Forest is going to scheme it up enough to where they're going to be able to slow down Boston College to some degree, I believe. So I will give you the 5 points, and I'm taking Wake. But Brandon notes that he hates Wake, so he's on BC. Trevor is on Wake Forest, and if I did not mention, both Trevor and Brandon were on Baylor, and they were also on Florida. Next up, we have Houston, number 24, giving 32.5 points to UConn. The over-under on this game is 55. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Houston. UConn is awful. They're one of the worst teams in all of FBS football. And although they did just hire Jim Mora, so maybe he'll be able to turn that around, but he's not coaching today. So give me Houston to cover 32.5. Kurt.
Yeah, I mean, we were just talking about college programs that probably shouldn't be D1. UConn is one of those as well. When your claim to fame is Dan Orlovsky as your quarterback out there for UConn, that's probably not a good sign for the history of your football squad. So I'll take Houston -32.5 and get UConn, those Huskies, out of there.
Okay, so UTSA, number 22, giving 10.5 points to North Texas. I'm on UTSA, Brandon is on UTSA, and Trevor is on North Texas. Kurt, where are you at?
Oh, UTSA. I was on them the other week as well when we were on our pick 'em. Got to stay with them. It's a cool story for that school. I like what they're putting together there. I'll take UTSA -10.5.
All right. Next up, Alabama at Auburn, the Iron Bowl. So Alabama is a 19.5 point favorite going to at Auburn. Auburn still without Bo Nix, also without their kicker. Both Trevor and Brandon are on Bama. Brandon notes, Bama can't let me down again, right? So, yeah.
Yeah, that's but this game coming up, what did I say? With Bo Nix gonna Bo Nix. That's just what it is. I
Bo
think
Nix is
Bama.
not going to play, so
Oh, he's not playing today. Okay,
that's
well,
that's what I mentioned. He is out.
I did not hear that. I'm sorry. Well, what we were talking about with Auburn that week before, what did I say? That I mean, he came through. He Bo Nix. They lost the game. I don't think they
Didn't
have a
play
shot
last week
against
either, so.
the week that we were on the podcast. Yeah, it was
Oh,
two
yeah,
weeks.
2 weeks ago.
Yeah,
Yeah.
when I did the pick'ems. Yeah, he absolutely shit the bed. But either way, Alabama minus 19 and a half against Auburn in the Iron Bowl. They put a statement on it going in to play Georgia. When they go for the SEC championship, give me Alabama minus 19 and a half.
All right. Next up, we have Indiana at Purdue. I put this game on here specifically for Brandon because it's not even a top 25, but the old Oaken Bucket, I believe. So Indiana is getting 15 points here at Purdue on the road. And both Brandon and Trevor are on Purdue. Brandon says, ha ha ha, it's basketball season. which Purdue is
What's
better at than you also.
I was
So
gonna say, what does that even mean? It's like Indiana has been struggling. Like they got
I
basketball, football. I don't know what to tell him. That poor guy is gonna drink himself to death with the Indiana sports teams.
yeah, I believe we're all on Purdue here.
Hmm.
Okay. Next up, this game I think is actually going to be pretty interesting. Oregon State getting 7 points on the road at Oregon. Oregon coming off that throttling from Utah. Over under is going to be 60.5 here, in case anyone wants to make a play on that. Both Brandon and Trevor on Oregon. Brandon notes Oregon bounces back big at home.
Yeah, I mean, Oregon, you'd think that they would have this big home field advantage as well, but I mean, they've had some struggles at home. Oregon State +7, we got an interstate rivalry. I think they could put up some points and keep it close with Oregon here. But with that loss that Oregon took last week, how could they not bounce back here big? I'll take Oregon against Oregon State plus or -7.
Yeah, so I'm on the other side of that. I think that Oregon State beat Oregon last year. They do tend to give them trouble. This is only 7 points. I will take those points. I think Oregon State will be enough to cover that. They have a chance to win this game outright.
Nice.
And then next up, we have Penn State at Michigan State. Penn State is giving a point to Michigan State at home. Michigan State is ranked number 12. Penn State is unranked. So I don't know how that works, but and Brandon is on Penn State. Trevor is on Michigan State. Who do you got, Kurt?
Close game. Looks like it's definitely going to be a drag out. It's a game that I would take the under in with these two schools. I think you're going to see a lot of clock getting eaten up for running the football. So I definitely would take the under 52. And go ahead, give me Michigan State. Teams at home, ranked, more on the line there. I'll take Michigan State +1.
Yeah, so both these coaches just got an extension, as we mentioned earlier this week, earlier on the pod. In regards to how I think this game is going to play out, Michigan State has now the worst defense in the country against the pass, and Penn State has this guy by the name of Jahan Dotson, who's pretty damn good. They also have Sean Clifford, who, while he does have some issues, is still a pretty good quarterback, and Penn State's defense, as you mentioned, is really good. So I'm on Penn State. This is, they're only given a point there, so that's fine. But if you're on Michigan State, you should definitely take them, money line. Next up, Wisconsin, number 14, is giving 7 points to Minnesota. The over-under this game is 39, and that might be too much. Brandon and Trevor are both on Wisconsin. Brandon notes PJ Fleck is a clown, and whiskey is cooking. I think he means Wisconsin by that. Wisconsin's, their defense is one of the best defenses in the country. And their offense has kind of found a groove, especially with their 17-year-old running back, Braylon. What's his name? I don't know his last name. It's escaping me at the moment. But yeah, the dude's 17. He looks like a man. He is absolutely dominating in terms of running the ball, and I do expect them to do that. Minnesota really only has one offense that they can run, and that's to try to run the ball at you. They do get their running back this week. I don't trust their quarterback at all. So I'm on Wisconsin. I will give you the 7 points.
Yeah, whiskey, Wisconsin, they go hand in hand. There ain't shit to do up there in that state, anyways. When it's cold as shit out there, that's what you're drinking.
Except
I'll
for
jump
go to
on.
football games.
Exactly. I'll jump on the bandwagon with the Cheeseheads, Wisconsin -7. PJ Fleck, I don't know what's going on with them in Minnesota. You know, it really looked like that program was promising, and I know he lost a lot of pieces to the NFL. That does take time, especially when you're trying to recruit to Minnesota. So we'll pump the brakes a little bit on PJ Fleck being rough on him because that guy did make some good moves up there at Minnesota. But I'm jumping on Wisconsin here -7. I definitely would stick to the under there as well. There's going to be a lot of clock chewing here. You're going to see that game fly by this afternoon.
I would probably stay away from the under. The reason why is because it is a really low line, and I could totally see Wisconsin like housing like a defensive turnover or something. And typically on games like that, it is hard to hit the under on. So that being the case, I would probably stay away from that over under line. But like I said, it might just be too many points, even at 39, which is really low.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, so going back to Texas A&M, who, I've picked against many times this year at LSU. And it looks like everyone is on Texas A&M. Here is my reasoning for arguing for LSU. It is, I'm not saying I'm going to pick them, but this is the logic at least.
Yeah. Okay.
It is Coach Orgeron's last game as head coach. I believe that they need this game in order to go become bowl eligible. Nobody plays harder for their coach than nobody's a better interim coach than Coach Orgeron. Let's be real. Texas A&M 6.5 points, whatever. Jimbo kind of just doesn't get teams up for games that they don't really mean anything. And this is a game that doesn't really mean anything for them. It is at LSU. It is going to be a little bit later in the day. LSU is a great place to go watch a football game. That crowd's going to be rowdy and amped up because this is their last time to see them this year. And I mean, it's just one of those things. Everything in my mind says logically the best team to pick here in this situation is Texas A&M, but emotionally, I believe that Coach O is going to be able to get LSU ready for this game. And 6.5 points is too much. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to stick my neck out and pick against Jimbo again because, it worked out for me well last week.
Speaking of emotions, you're in a glass case of emotions with Jimbo Fisher, man. I don't think it's ever going to go away. This guy is just going to hold this grudge till the day that you die. Until that dude is 6 feet under, you won't be happy.
Until Jimbo wins a national championship as a head coach with a quarterback not named Jameis Winston, I'm probably going to bet against him.
Well, I'm rolling with Jimbo Fisher. There's too much on the line. -6.5 at an LSU team. Again, basically in shambles. They're getting rid of coaches. You don't know what's going on with the program down there. Give me the consistency with A&M and Jimbo Fisher. I'll take the -6.5.
Whatever. I mean, I'm sure you guys will give me that 6.5, and I'll take it. LSU to cover. Let's go Tigers. All right. Number 10, Oklahoma, giving 4 points to number 7, Oklahoma State. Is that right? I don't know.
I was gonna say
But
that
anyway,
doesn't seem right.
I don't know if it is. I think they might be getting 4 points in that game. So yeah, Oklahoma at Oklahoma State, Bedlam, over under 49.5. Both these defenses have been playing better lately, so I think that there's a chance that this might hit the under. Oklahoma State and for Trevor and Brandon. And Brandon says, because Oklahoma State is my only hope to leap Cincy, because he's been hating on them all year. I'm just going to pull that line up real quick. What do you think about this game?
Well, haters gonna hate. I expect nothing less from Brandon Brister coming out trying to talk some smack on my UC Bearcats. So that's all good and well, but I've got to go with the greatest hairdo in college football, Mike Gundy. Come at me, I'm a man. That's who I am. I'm a man. I like him against Oklahoma for sure. The rivalry game, Oklahoma's been struggling a little bit. I like riding with Oklahoma State.
So Oklahoma is in fact getting 4 points. I'm going to take the points there. and take Oklahoma. I think Oklahoma State probably wins this game still, but there's enough of a chance this game should be closer in terms of that line. So I'm going to take the points with Oklahoma.
All right. So you're not a man.
I mean, Mike Gundy's not 40 anymore, so there's that. But anyway, so yeah, next up we have number 17, Pittsburgh, giving 13 points to the Syracuse Orange in the Carrier Dome. So weather shouldn't be a factor there. The over-under for this game is 58 points. Both Brandon and Trevor are on Pitt. What do you got?
I'm on Pitt as well. Sorry for the Orange men, but it just ain't happening. Pittsburgh looks really good. They've been playing well, got good quarterback play. I like the offense, and I'll take them minus 13, especially when they're nice, cozy inside that nice dome.
Yeah, so I do think that Syracuse has a chance to keep this game close enough to cover that 13 points, but I am not brave enough to bet on it. So I will give, I'm going to take Pitt here to cover the 13 despite that. And then Brandon notes, bad day at the Carrier Dome, Pitt by a million, but he's also been on Pitt, basically all
The
year.
whole year.
Yeah, because that's his second college team. So number 23, Clemson, giving 11.5 points at South Carolina under a 43, which that seems low. Clemson's offense has struggled at times this year, but South Carolina, I'm not sure they're really going to be able to stop anybody. Brandon notes Clemson found something and USC stinks. USC East there, that is South Carolina. Brandon is on Clemson. Trevor's on South Carolina to cover the 11.5. Kurt?
Well, I think Brandon's onto something there for once in his life about Clemson finding something. That team's not going to be bad. Everybody's sitting there, is this the end of Dabo? Oh, Clemson's falling off a cliff, yada, yada. No, the team is built. They have guys that are coming in, talent. The new recruiting class will be there. I think they close out the season strong and show what the old Clemson was like. I definitely like the over 43 points. That's not enough to me. So I think that's something that I would love to hammer on a bet, taking Clemson in the over here against South Carolina.
Next up, we have Kentucky getting 3 points at Louisville on the road there, 57 points there. Brandon is on Kentucky. He's seen the light of his in the darkness there and crossed the border. Trevor's on Louisville, kind of like an ACC homer pick. Louisville does have a really good quarterback that's going to be able to make this game interesting, but I just like the points there. So give me the 3 points because this is one of those games where it's always tough. It's always close in that respect. And Kentucky has good offensive line, good defensive line. They're going to be able to cause some problems for Louisville. Louisville is one of those teams where they can hit explosive, but they can't really do anything else in terms of moving the ball. So I'm on Kentucky here. Who do you got, Kurt?
CATS, 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 cats. Let's go. We'll have to be rooting for one of my buddies, the alumni UK. We'll be watching this game closely. Rooting for the Cats tonight. Give me plus 3-2 at Louisville. Like you said, it's a tough interstate rivalry. It's always a grind out game. So I'll take UK, but give me those 3 points. I think they're going to be needed.
And Brandon said, let's ride with UK one more time. And I picked Purdue. Puke. so he's going against his Indiana roots by taking the Wildcats there. But number 6, Notre Dame, giving 19.5 points at Stanford, over under 52.5. Brandon and Trevor on Notre Dame. Brandon notes Notre Dame makes a huge case for the college football playoff. Stanford's not any good. Notre Dame's going to be able to do what they want with them at will. So I'm going to take Notre Dame here as well. Looks like you might take the other side of that.
If I'm going for the bet and minus 19.5, I think I could take Stanford. I think they could cover the 19.5 there. If we're picking straight up, obviously, I think Notre Dame will take the victory, but we're talking about point spread, 19.5 points. I really just think Notre Dame are who we thought they were. I don't think they're a great team. They kind of pitter through the season with a weak schedule, hiding as an independent. I don't really like Notre Dame. Plus, I have a chip on my shoulder for Brian Kelly. I think that dude's a piece of shit as well, especially when he launched on UC after going undefeated. Go Fickle, go Cats. I'll take Notre Dame in the straight up, but if you're going to bet on this one, I could take Stanford with minus 19.5. I bet you got, or plus 19.5. I bet you there's some juice on there.
Yeah, so you are on Stanford to cover. And then the last game here that we're going to pick, BYU, number 13, giving 7 points at USC. The over under for this game is 64 and a half. Is 64 actually. Brandon is on BYU. Trevor is on USC.
Let's roll with the Mormons, baby. I can take BYU -7. USC still struggling to find a coach and what's going to happen here with their program. Once they get somebody in there, it would be fun to see USC football return to a little bit of glory. I always loved those days back when we had Reggie Bush, Matt Leinart, some good players out west. That would be cool to see again, but not tonight. BYU -7 over USC.
So yeah, this number is artificially close to me. I think it's way too low. BYU is a really good passing attack. They're in general just a really good football team, and USC is an absolute mess, as Brandon notes here. They, since they've gone to that interim, they're not even covering many of the lines. Their best player is Drake London, who has been out for a while, the wide receiver, and I mean he's not going to be in this one. I have no understanding why this would be close. USC couldn't keep it close last week against UCLA. And so if that's a rivalry game, you can't get up for a rivalry game. What makes you think they're going to be able to beat a BYU team that is better than UCLA? I don't get it. So yeah, I'm on the Cougars here. Trevor's the only one that dissents. He's taking USC. No idea why. Brandon notes USC is a mess, and let's roll with the Mormons one more time too.
That's Trevor's pretend fanhood of Southern California, like he's a 49ers fan. Now what, we got a USC fan too? Get out of here.
Well, no, he's actually a UCLA fan because that's where his dad went. So I don't know why, but he's on USC there. Anyway, so that'll get you started. Hopefully you got those bets in now, or you have a few minutes to do it if you're still planning on doing it for the early games. But it is rivalry week. We will see, how it plays out there. And go Noles. So let's have a good one. And it was fun this year.
Yeah, let's go. Football, baby. Have fun, everybody.